Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm is located in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, Philippines. It is one of 7 operating units of the Bureau of Corrections under the Department of Justice. On November 16, 1904, Governor Luke Wright authorized the establishment of a penal colony in the province of Palawan. This penal settlement, which originally comprises an area of 22 acres, originally served as a depository for prisoners who could not be accommodated at the Bilibid prison in Manila. This unique prison without bars was established by the Americans in 1904. The inmates tend vast farms instead of idly spending time behind bars. The more enterprising earn by making handicrafts and other productive activities during their spare time. Iwahig has since become synonymous to finding handcrafted bags and other souvenirs items. Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm is subdivided into 4 zones or districts. Central Sub-Colony with an area of 14,700 hectares. Santa Lucia with 9,685 hectares. Montebol with 8,000 hectares. And Inagawan with 13,000 hectares. On August 16, 1959, a committee was created by President Carlos P. Garcia to study the state of national prisons. Accordingly, prisoners in Iwahig were divided into 2 groups, the settlers and colonists. The settlers are those engaged in farming for their own benefit. They are the ones whose application for land to cultivate have been approved. The government furnishes the land and initial requirements for tools, dwellings, and beasts of burden. They are required to reimburse expenditures incurred for their maintenance and that of their families out of the products of their farms. Upon their release from the colony, they receive whatever amount of money they have credited in their favor, after deducting the obligations they have. Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm in the Philippines is one of the world's largest open-air jails. Instead of concrete walls, the prison is surrounded by a wire fence. A single guard at the entrance gate greets tourists and criminals' relatives without inspecting them. The Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm is one of the most popular prisons in the Philippines.
So now let's proceed to the SWOT of Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. So first we have the strength. So the strength of Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm, they are self-managed and self-supporting. They organize their community and find their living inside Iwahig Penal Farm. I was amazed with how life of Second Chance will be more peaceful, while at Iwahig, they dedicate themselves either to farming, fishing, forestry, carpentry, and hospital medical work. So actually in this way, they are trained to have their own livelihood, which they can use once they are end their sentence term. Now, some of those who were imprisoned at Iwahig prefer to stay and settle in the penal farm even after they have been discharged. So, this shows how effective the reformation program used at the penal colony is. So, again, many of the former inmates there now live in the farm with their respective families.
Weaknesses of Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. As we all know, the common problems of prisons in the Philippines are overcrowding, having poor ventilation, limited food supply with low nutritional value, unhygienic conditions, and inaccessible medical care. Mental health issues also arise due to isolation and lack of privacy. In Iwahig, inmates who plan on escaping could easily do due to the leniency of the penal system. As we all know, Iwahig is known as the prison without bars, so if the prisoner is eager to escape, he may have a chance to do so.
Opportunities. The Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm, or IPPF, is enhancing its education program for persons deprived of liberty, or PDLS, within the prison by implementing an education training program. The prison management said that it is providing opportunities for PDLS to still learn even while serving their sentences inside the penal prison. The PDLS are assisted by corrections officers with a background in the teaching profession, guided by the modules from the Alternative Learning System, or ALS, and instructional materials provided by the Bureau of Corrections, or BUCOR, and the Department of Education, or DepEd. A merit system was devised for the prisoners, and vocational activities were offered. These included farming, fishing, forestry, carpentry, and hospital paramedical work. Prisoners could choose the vocational activities they wanted.
Threats in Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. First is overcrowding. Overcrowding is one of the biggest threats in Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. The prison was built to house 5,000 inmates, but it currently holds more than 10,000. This results in poor living conditions, lack of space, and increased tension among the inmates. Second is gang violence. Gang violence is also a major threat in Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. The prisons houses different gangs, and conflict between them often result in violent clashes. This leads to injuries and even death among the inmates. The third one is corruption, is another significant threat in Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. The prison staff often accused of accepting bribes from inmates to provide them with better living conditions and allow them to escape. The fourth is health concerns. In recent years, the prison has faced health concerns, particularly in COVID-19 pandemic. The overcrowded living conditions and lack of prior sanitations have difficult control in spread of the virus. Fifth one is natural disaster. The prison is also vulnerable to natural disaster such as typhoon and flood. In this past, this disaster have caused significant damage to the prison facilities and put inmates' lives at risk. Overall, the threats in the Iwahig Prison and Penal Farms significant and pose a damage to inmates' safety and well-being. Addressing these threats requires concerted efforts from the government, prison authorities, and the public to improve living conditions, reduce overcrowding, and ensure the safety of the inmates.
The advantage of Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm. This unique prison without bars was established by the Americans in 1904. The inmates then vast farm instead of idly spending times behind bars. The more enterprising earned by making handicrafts and other productive activities during their spare time. Aside from maximum security inmates, who are kept isolated, all convict a trade including farming, fishing, forestry, and carpentry. Ang mga advantage ng Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm ay mga inmates gumagawa o nagtatrabaho ng mga farms and kumikita sila ng kanilang ginagawa at hindi lang farming ang kanilang ginagawa. Ang mga inmates meron ding fishing, forestry, at pagkakarpintero kaya maraming nakukuhang kaalaman ang mga inmates dito. Yun ang mga ginagawa ng mga inmates sa Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm instead of idly spending their times behind bars.
Good day, I am John Philip Amor. The Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm is a correctional facility located in Puerto Princesa, Palawan, Philippines. While the facility has some advantages such as its focus on rehabilitation and vocational training, there are also some disadvantages including: first is overcrowding. The facility was built to accommodate around 2,500 inmates, but as of 2021, it houses more than 4,000 inmates. This leads to overcrowding and can result in poor living conditions, increased tension among inmates, and difficulty in delivering adequate services. And second is limited access to medical care. Due to its remote location, the prison has limited access to medical care, which can be a serious problem in case of emergencies or outbreaks of diseases. And third, limited job opportunities. The prison offers vocational training to inmates, but after their release, they may find it difficult to secure employment due to the stigma associated with having a criminal record. And lastly, human rights concerns. The facility has been criticized in the past for human rights violations, including allegation of abuse and torture of inmates. And that's all. Thank you.
Biggest function of Iwahig. In the Iwahig prison and penal farm, minimum security prisoners get to be involved in agricultural works and live in dormitories. Another feature of this colony is that families of the prisoner can live and stay with them. These family members can also work at Iwahig vast land area and at some shops selling handicrafts to earn a living. At the Iwahig prison and penal farm, prisoner can roam free, and the respective correctional facility are allowed to mingle with visitors. The prison and penal farm are one of the 7 operating units of the Bureau of Corrections, which is under the Department of Justice. As part of the Iwahig prison and penal farm rehabilitation program, they are given the opportunity to work around the farm and fisheries and still earn to provide for their families and loved ones outside. The inmates take jobs and farming, fishing, forestry, and carpentry. That's all. Thank you.